Parts of northern Illinois, it's a day to clean up after storms that packed everything from funnel clouds and confirmed tornadoes to damaging lightning. WMAQ TV's Dick Johnson, he has the story of a man so engrossed in the Cubs game that he actually had to be told that lightning had set fire to his home. About whether or not this storm will strengthen based on what kind of challenges, what kind of obstacles it's going to face as it works westward.
Yeah, you know, wind shear is going to be an issue, and dry air is probably also going to be an issue. It is an issue right now. We were looking at this thing yesterday and we were going, wow, this thing is really taken off. It's got thunderstorms wrapping all around it. The upper level environment looks favorable. And today, not so much. I mean, the upper level environment still looks pretty good, but there's not a lot of thunderstorms, and that's indicated by that bright color there. What you're looking at is the tops of the storms, as you know, and we're seeing the colors relating to how cold those tops are. So when you're not seeing a lot of color there, you're not seeing a lot of tall thunderstorms, meaning that the thunderstorms have died off.
Right.
And the most likely explanation for that is some intrusion of dry air, probably here on the northwest side. See the absence of cloud right there? It looks like it may have dropped in right there.
Yeah, right into that little notch there.
Yeah, and in fact, we've got a satellite picture overlaid with the moisture, and so you've got this area of moisture, this packet there, and then a lot of that to the south, so it's drawing on that. But then there's this very dry air to the north, and so, you know, all of this is coming off the continent of Africa, and it's amazing how it mirrors what's going on in Africa, because these waves are coming out of the forest, essentially, in Africa, and then to the north of that, you've got this dry air that's coming off the largest desert in the world, and the air masses come out like that, and they interact to some extent, and to some extent, that actually does help these waves get going, because there's a gradient in temperature between those air masses. That actually creates some spin in the atmosphere that gets these things going. But when the air is really, really dry, it can be entrained into the circulation and then kill off the thunderstorms. And so that is one of the big questions. How strong is that dry air going to be? Is it really going to get involved with the circulation coming up? And, you know, the intensity models are all over the place. The global models are all over the place. Part of that's due to shear, I'm sure, but you know, that could also be due to what's going on with the dry air. And it may be that some of the models that want to really spin this thing up are not doing as good of a job at modeling what's going on in the future. So you see the dry air here, and
all around it, almost like a donut right around it.
Completely wraps around that circulation. So, you know, early on it's sort of connected to this moist air to the south, but then it runs away from that. And the question is it so strong? You know, when they get strong, they can start to write their own script and fend everything off.
Right.
Will it be that strong? So a lot of open questions at this point about the intensity.
Big question mark on Danny.
Hey, I'm Dave. This is Alex. And Alex, I understand you're a golfer.
I've played a little bit. I always say, you know, nine holes good, 18 might get a little long. I just get frustrated and angry. I think a lot of people can probably relate to that. Yeah, you throw the clubs instead of the nice stroke.
Well, they happen to be teeing it up tomorrow for the final tournament before the start of the FedEx playoffs. So you're going to have to behave yourself if you want to be a part of that.
Yeah, no bending it over your knee. Well, the key to landing on top of the leaderboard could actually be managing the weather conditions. Our Jim Cantori explains.
Hurricane specialist, he's there with Alex.
Yeah, another day with more information and more thoughts on what could impede this system, where it could eventually go, and what we're going to see from Danny as we get into the days ahead.
Yeah, and you know, right now it's not looking all that great. In fact, if you didn't know where it was there, you might not know where it was.
I think some people might say, well, isn't that it? That one looks the most impressive.
Right, the thunderstorms are more robust farther east, exactly right. So I think it's probably taking in some dry air, and that has led to a little bit of a collapse in these thunderstorms. But of course, the big question is, what's going to be happening in the future? And right now it is expected to become a hurricane. It's going to move over towards the Lesser Antilles, and the models are telling us different things about what the upper level environment is going to do. Now, we talked about the trough earlier. That's basically a fancy name for an upper level low. And along with that, you find stronger upper level winds. So the USGFS model is telling us that there is going to be a trough nearby with stronger upper level winds, but they're not going to be right over top of the system where it could be sheared. Rather, they're going to be just north and west. And that's interesting because that's actually a good thing as far as the storm maintaining its intensity or getting stronger, because it's a big heat engine. You've got warm and humid air coming into the lower levels of the storm, rising up through that eye wall like a chimney, and then if that air is evacuated at the top, especially if you have stronger.
Do that.
Exactly right. It's just like a vacuum cleaner, and it's going to make that process more efficient. But the opposite can be true if the upper level wind is sitting right over top of that circulation, and that's what the European model is telling us is going to happen. Then what it does is it kicks those thunderstorms away from the center of circulation, and then the whole thing begins to collapse because they need to wrap about that center of circulation for that heat engine to continue to work the way that it's supposed to work. So, you know, that's what the models are telling us right now. We don't really look to these models for intensity, but we do look to them for the pattern, and still a lot of very big questions in the forecast.
All right.
You know, Alex, we are right in the middle of wildfire season, and they're all in the West.
Oh,
just about all in the West. And reinforcements from the East Coast are now heading west to help fire crews contain these monster blazes.
Yeah, they need the help across the West. Millions of acres have been torched this summer alone. Among the worst is a massive fire burning near a resort town in Chelan, Washington. Leanne Gregg is there with the new dangers today. Under a flash flood warning earlier this afternoon, I actually just saw somebody posted on Facebook, Charleston is just turning into a turnaround, don't drown situation, she wrote, because living in the low country, unfortunately, that's what you get. The video shows those streets were swamped.
Yeah, not so sweet.
Not so sweet at all. Areas with poor drainage saw a lot of flooding, and that included the downtown area. Why does that happen a lot in Charleston? Because I think people at home are going, I feel like we talk about Charleston a lot. Well, three big things. It's just a few feet above sea level. That's why we call it the low country. It's surrounded by rivers, and it lies next to the ocean. Right,
so there's plenty of water to go around. So if it rains heavily on shore, well, no matter where you are, right? If you just keep getting hours and hours of rain, you're going to flood.
Absolutely.
But then add in the fact you've got rivers emptying into Charleston Harbor, and you've got the ocean. So put high tide together with water coming in from heavy rain over.
Absolutely. Kind of a recipe for disaster. And as you said, anytime you get a ton of rain in a short period of time, you're going to get flooding. 3-hour rainfall totals yesterday, over 3 inches, some spots as much as 3.5 inches.
Take a closer look at what caused this problem. Well, heavy rain in a short period of time, same as with Charleston. They're only 13 feet above sea level, and we lie next to an ocean too.
So
Sound
very
familiar?
similar, yes, absolutely. And you know, these areas, when it rains, it pours and it sticks around, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Hey, we're back with a look at Tropical Storm Danny.